Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Judith Royer. I am one of the CSJ Sisters of St. Joseph at the LMU, at LMU. I'm also the director for the CSJ Center for Reconciliation and Justice. And on behalf of the Sisters of St. Joseph and the CSJ Center, I want to welcome all of you, family, friends, colleagues of the 5 people that we are here to celebrate today. The Hidden Heroes program is designed to honor members of LMU and the law school, faculty, staff, student community, as well as alums and/or community partners who have been committed to social justice through service and action. These are people who either in their primary work or behind the scenes whose work has gone largely unrecognized, under the radar, as we call it. So today we want to take time to tell at least a small part of each of their stories. I also want to take an opportunity to thank our dedicated Hidden Heroes Selection Committee and the university members who nominated today's awardees and allowed them to be with us today. Now let me introduce Doris Baisley, the editor and one of the writers for today's program, to explain the unique nature of this recognition event.
Thanks, Judith. Judith and I come from the theater department. So to celebrate our hidden heroes, we dramatize them. We match up our awardees in conversation with playwrights so their words can be put on stage, or in this case, on screen. And as the story moves from the storyteller through the writer to the actor, out to the audience, and then back again to the original storyteller, it creates a circle of communication that brings the individual story to life in a new context with new meaning and value and power. And I would like to thank our writers, Bonnie Banfield, Mary O'Malley, and Louise Selgas for joining me in that process. The video is 90 minutes long, and we'll meet afterwards to present the awards to the Hidden Heroes. And after that, we invite the storytellers, writers, and actors to come on screen to connect with each other. And we hope you, the audience, will be part of that. And now we're going to start our tribute to Hidden Heroes 2022.
To a wounded world in need of healing and compassion.
In the midst of our vulnerability and emptiness.
In a time of limited and unevenly shared global resources.
We ask for the grace to stand with the poor, the suffering, the oppressed.
To promote social justice.
To promote economic justice.
To be a community of unity and reconciliation. It's like this. We'd cut up the apples and put out the cheese and crackers. You like these? Go on, have some. We'd also put out pretzels, oranges, bananas, and there was hot cocoa and cookies and chips and dip and string cheese and juice. Oh, and popcorn, of course. I overdid it, but I wanted to be sure that there was something that everybody could enjoy. Underneath the chapel, we call that the cave. It was wonderful to have an office down there. My job was campus minister in the Office of Spiritual Direction for students, grads and undergrads. And that's what I love, because You show up for everything. You support everybody. You welcome everybody. There's a big sitting room down there, and I would throw parties in the evening after the 8 p.m. Mass. Any student who wanted to could come down after Mass and have snacks and just kind of socialize and fellowship. And I love that because, well, I'm a night person, and it's 8 p.m. Mass, right? So they'd come down around 9:15, and they go on visiting until 10:30, whatever. For me, it was the Eucharist after the Eucharist, the liturgy after the liturgy, the fellowship after the fellowship. Then I'd clean up the kitchen and close the cave by 11:30. And when I was a resident minister, I lived with 80 freshman girls, and on Monday nights, I'd have my weekly open door welcome in my apartment with snacks from 8 to 10 p.m. And they'd smell cookies baking and just come in. And then I'd go to my 10 o'clock Marians service organization meeting since I was their chaplain. I was actually the first female chaplain. Usually a service org would have a priest, but they started in 2003 when there weren't enough priests to go around. They're a feminist group. And they're founded for a purpose, to serve women and children, women who are struggling, who are in transition. So I would go and bring them snacks and help guide their spiritual chairperson who would give the reflection, and I would have a prayer. During the day, I'd sit with students and just welcome them as they were, however they came. I'd listen and support them in spiritual direction. Really spiritual companionship because the Holy Spirit is the director and I just get to be there to facilitate that. Sometimes there'd be tears and upset. There's struggles on campus, whether it's addiction or finding their identity in religion and sexuality, the decisions they're making, whatever comes after college, just to hear them process. And that was the main thing. I didn't have the answers, but they could come to their own answers and know that they were loved. God was with us. It was a kind of ministry of hospitality, I guess you'd say, or the ministry of presence. Sometimes it's just a wipe out listening, and yet I get energized by that, and that's how I know that it's a ministry for me, because it gives me life. I grew up in Compton, and I was taught by our sisters there. Sister Judith actually taught me in the 7th grade. My mom was the ice cream lady, and she would sell ice cream at school, and by the time we got home, she would be home. She supported us 6 kids in every way that she could. My dad was a factory worker at Norris Thermidor, a metal pot and pan factory. He was there a long time. It affected his hearing, so he had some hearing loss and some depression. Oh my gosh, he gave his health to work for all of us kids. He was the St. Vincent de Paul man in the parish. He would collect things to help the poor in the neighborhood. I mean, we were all poor. We didn't know it, but we were all poor. In the evening, he did his side jobs, and he would grow vegetables in the garden in the back. He loved that. And Mom would can the vegetables and fruits, and on Sunday, he'd take us in the old Buick or the old whatever it was to church. And he'd be waiting as we all dawdled out to the car, and then Mom would come out last, and she'd say, "I had to feed the cats before we left." We always had 2 batches of cats, and a cockatiel, parakeets, lizards. My favorite pet was a horned toad. And we had an iguana and snakes. My brothers had the snakes, and we had tortoises that walked around in the backyard that we got probably illegally from Arizona. I think we had a rabbit. We had a guinea pig. Oh, and we had tarantulas. There was a little pool in the backyard and a slip and slide, and I'd play with my brothers, and our friends would come over, and Mom always had cookies in the oven. And then, yeah, so it's wonderful to think back. The love that I've received makes me cry. You know, what you're doing for me right now is spiritual companionship. All of you on the Hidden Heroes team, with all the storytelling dramas, you're hearing their stories and letting people know that they're loved as they are. Here, eat some snacks. I knew in the 2nd grade that I wanted to be a sister. I went to Mount St. Mary's College on a scholarship, and in the meantime, I'd started dating one of my brother's friends, and sure enough, we fall in love. Okay, so he goes off to Vietnam in the Air Force. And I'm teaching religion in weekend classes at the parish, and we have a whole year apart. And he'd had, 3 or 4 years of service, but the 1 year in Vietnam, when he came back, he was different. And I was different. By then I was learning that I wanted to teach. And he said, let's get married now. And we planned to get married in a year, but he wanted me to come up north where he was stationed. I said, you mean you want me to give up my scholarship? You want me to leave college? I realized that things were different, so we mutually decided to break up, and I dated other guys for a while. And then, who shows up on campus but the Sisters of St. Joseph of Orange as students? And they invited me to the Mother House. And I walked in and I burst into tears. I thought, oh wow, this is home. I came back to that sense of religious vocation. And because I'd broken up with my boyfriend and then decided not to continue dating other guys, I was free. And when I graduated from Mount St. Mary's, the sisters invited me back. They knew. I guess they all knew I'd always wanted to be a sister, but they let me be free. I knew I was being called, but it was too scary to make a commitment. Then one of the sisters says, would it help if we told you that you can't come and we don't want you? Now, I'm indecisive. I cannot make a decision unless I'm pushed. If you put me in a plane and say, okay, you've got to jump out, but you'll be okay because you've got the parachute, I wouldn't be able to jump. So when she says, maybe I couldn't come, it never dawned on me that they wouldn't take me. I said, put my name down, I'm coming. She helped me to jump. The thought of losing the very thing I wanted, that helped me to accept it as a gift that was being handed to me. Did I struggle after I entered? Yes. I didn't make final vows until I was 8 years in the community, but I had peace after 5 years. And the peace was strong, and it was rooted. And what I found out, and what I tell students, is commitment sets you free. And I could help the students with that. How do you make an important decision? How do you really look at what matters to you? Being there, sitting with them, I let them know you're not alone. When I was diagnosed with cancer, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. I'm going to die in another year, just like my mom died at 70. And Mary Beth, Sister Mary Beth, she lives here too, she said, no, this doesn't mean you're going to die. People don't die with cancer now. We're going to the doctor. But then when we found out it was stage 4, we thought, oh. But the doctors go, no, we can do something. So we're going to get you ready for a major surgery. And that's what the chemotherapy and radiation was. And I had the ostomy. I was a week in the hospital at St. John's in Santa Monica. And my oncologist said, if this had been 20 years ago, we couldn't have done anything for you, but now we can. So that was the miracle. All my life, I've been connected to the education ministry. But since my cancer diagnosis, I've become so much more aware of the medical and the healing ministry. They are the heroes, all the doctors and nurses who cared for me there and at our infirmary in Orange, and all the sisters who came to visit me, and all the sisters who prayed for me, and all of campus ministry praying for me the whole time, every Sunday praying for me. Oh my gosh, I thought, they are going to get so tired of hearing my name. God, would you please take care of her and get her off our list? I haven't ever been alone. I've had so much support, and that's what keeps me going. great love that I know starts with God, goes to my parents, my grandparents, and my family and my siblings. I've gotten closer to them now in my illness, and my co-workers and my co-ministers. John Flaherty, who was my supervisor in campus ministry, Dr. Renee Harang in the Marians. I don't want to leave anybody out. All my elementary school teachers, my high school teachers and the university professors, my mentors and the ministers, all my friends and the sisters, the CSJs, especially Orange, and the Jesuits, and all the doctors and nurses. I was thinking about hidden heroes, and I thought, everybody's a hero. This is just my time to let my story be shared. Yeah, it's been sacred stories, a sacred ministry. Daniel Berrigan has this poem. These many beautiful days cannot be lived again, but they are compounded in my own flesh and spirit, and I take them in full measure toward whatever lies ahead. Can I fix you a ham sandwich?
I am with you on the journey, and I will never leave you. I am with you on the journey, always with you.
Pues mi nombre es Luis de la O. Sr. Yo nací en Ciudad Juárez, Chihuahua, México, en 1949. A los 16 me trajeron a mí y a mis hermanos a Estados Unidos. Y aquí estoy todavía. No me he regresado. Éramos 6 hermanos, 2 mujeres y 4 hombres. Mis padres estaban en Texas trabajando para poder traernos. No ganaban lo suficiente, ganaban 80 a la semana entre los dos. Se necesitaba 100. Encontraron trabajo que pagaba más en California. Allí ganaron casi 300 a la semana. Así que pudieron pagar por traernos después de como un año. Y mi hermana, Silvia, era la mayor y nos cuidaba mientras nuestros padres estaban en California. Pero nos trataba peor que madrastra. Es que ella quería ser mi mamá, pero teníamos casi la misma edad. Yo le dije, ve a ser mamá de los otros, pero de mí no eres. ¿Ah? Ya pues estando aquí con nuestros padres era mucho mejor entre nosotros. Pero mi experiencia emigrando no fue muy buena. En esos tiempos había mucha discriminación, hasta entre los mismos hispanos, entre los nacidos aquí y los nacidos en México. El inglés era oficial aquí en California. Teníamos que aprender inglés luego, en menos de un año, y yo no lo aprendí. Por eso tuve problemas con los nacidos aquí. No nos querían aquí. Le reclamé a mis padres. ¿Por qué nos habían traído a un país donde no nos querían? Y mi papá me dijo, te traje a Estados Unidos porque en un futuro te quieres ir de aquí y ya vas arreglado. Si no te arreglo ahora, en un futuro te ibas a querer venir a Estados Unidos de todos modos. Y gracias a él estoy aquí. Bueno, en lugar de irme a la escuela, me puse a trabajar. con el correr de los años aprendí varios trabajos. Aprendí joyería, jardinería, el oficio de custodian. Por eso no aprendí el idioma, porque encontraba mis trabajos con pura gente hispana. Estaba trabajando en una panificadora de pan francés. Allí duré 15 años. Pues tuve dificultades con los patrones. A la compañía no le iban bien y los patrones pidieron ideas para soluciones para no cerrar la compañía. Y allí me metí. El problema es que a mí me gustaba el liderazgo de César Chávez. Entonces entré con esa mentalidad. A nosotros nos pagaban si trabajábamos. Si no, no. A ellos les pagaban aunque no trabajaran. A nosotros nos pagaban 37 horas y media. Y después de eso nos pagaban overtime. Los supervisores ya no nos daban overtime. Solo ellos agarraban todo el overtime que querían. Pues yo les di soluciones y les dije que teníamos que hacer un sacrificio, tanto ellos como nosotros. Le dije al patrón, la solución que pueda haber es que nos paguen 40 horas y no nos den overtime. Allí se ahorran mucho dinero. Y ya cuando les dije que ellos también tenían que hacer un sacrificio, pues eso no les gustó. Eran tres. Uno ganaba 100, 120 y el otro 80 al año. Les dije que su sacrificio era que se rebajaran 20,000 de su sueldo anual. Yo, que soy el dueño, sí, eres el dueño. Ya ganarías 20,000 menos. ¿Tú qué sabes de los negocios? Bueno, ustedes pidieron sugerencias. El hijo casi no trabajaba tanto y ganaba 80,000. Entonces él ganaría 60,000. Mi hijo es abogado. Yo lo mandé a Corea para que aprendiera a ser abogado y defender la compañía. ¿Tú tienes hijos? Sí, tengo un hijo. Lo mandé a Arabia Saudita, pero a defender el país, no solo la panadería. Y pues no me dijo nada más. Nos cortaron beneficios médicos. Ray Morales, un organizador, me dijo que contara una y otra persona y eso hice. Entonces todos en la panificadora nos reunimos y votamos para ir a huelga. Ahí fue que uno de los patrones me dijo que yo los estaba alborotando y me dijo hasta el mal de que me iba a morir. Pero solo estábamos exigiendo lo que era justo. En el tiempo que estuve allí, pues me pusieron mucha presión para hacerme renunciar. A los 4 años me accidenté de tanta presión. Me pusieron a un supervisor que solo me supervisaba 1 hora cada 8 días. Pero en solo esa hora me mandaba a hacer una infinidad de cosas. No había terminado un trabajo y ya me estaba mandando a hacer otra cosa. En una de esas me mandó a hacer cajas de cartón y estaban en una pila. No había escalera. Así que me subí a un palet para jalar el bunch de cajas y me vine para atrás con las cajas y me pegué en una rampa de hierro en el último huesito de la columna. Ahí me quedé tirado, sofocado. No podía respirar. Y me levantaron y me llevaron al doctor, su doctor. Me hicieron rayos X. Me hice daño en la espalda y me fracturé la mano. El doctor, quien trabajaba para la compañía, me dijo, te voy a dar 3 días de descanso, porque sé que eres muy buen trabajador. Esos 3 días se hicieron 1 mes y medio porque me puso yeso. No quedó bien, pero me mandó a trabajar con dolores y todo. No aguanté más que 1 hora. Les dije que no podía y me mandaron a la casa y que fuera a ver al doctor otra vez. Pero yo no fui a su doctor. Ahí sí fui con un abogado y a hacer mi papeleo de workers' comp. Pues a los 4 meses regresé y me dijeron que ya me borraron. No me podían despedir así, que estaba bajo la aseguranza de Workers' Comp. Me dieron un dinerito y con eso duré 2 años sin trabajar. Bueno, como yo me accidenté, mis compañeros siguieron pidiendo los beneficios. Por eso, digo, pero los estaban amenazando con quitarles el trabajo hasta que se metió la unión. En realidad, nada cambió. La compañía siguió por unos 5 años y luego fue a la bancarrota. Entonces, en 1997, al fin me tocó la oportunidad de trabajar en la universidad. Sí. Ya llevo 24 años en LMU, mucho tiempo. Y yo me debería haber ido, pero el poco inglés que conozco lo he aprendido ahí y quiero aprender más. También llegué a la edad máxima y gano bien. Y al fin me dan mi seguro completo, así que puedo hacer las cosas que no podía hacer antes. Ya mi casita no se me está cayendo. Mi esposa quería una nueva cocina, un baño nuevo. Mi esposa, conocí a mi esposa por culpa de un amigo mío. Me invitó a su boda en Tijuana. Allí fue donde la conocí. Ella se ganó el ramo de la novia y ya de allí en adelante nos hicimos novios. Pero el asunto es que en ese tiempo yo tenía 18 años y me salió la clasificación para ir al servicio. En esos tiempos te ibas a Vietnam, pero el que no hablaba inglés no se lo llevaban, o el que estuviera casado no se lo llevaban. Y pensé, no hablo inglés y me caso, doble seguro. Fui a pedirle a ella, pero su padre me mandó a buscar por otro lado. Me fui a la ciudad Juárez a buscar novia y me la dieron. En agosto íbamos a formalizarlo. Pero en julio fui a Tijuana y me encontré de nuevo con mi esposa. Y volvimos otra vez. Le dije que su padre no quería que se casara conmigo, pero o te vas conmigo, le dije, o no puede haber nada. Y la batallé y al fin se fue conmigo. Y seguimos juntos hasta que la muerte nos separe. He roto todos los sacramentos, pero menos ese. Ahí seguimos. Tenemos 3 hijos y somos hasta bisabuelos. Así que casado y aún no hablaba inglés. Y yo llegaba al lugar donde reclutaban y yo hablaba solo español. Los oficiales se veían el uno al otro y decían, agárralo, llévalo. Había 3 líneas, una negra, una blanca y una amarilla. Me puso en la negra y ya más al frente vi que estaba el examen físico. Así que me salí de la línea y llegó el sargento y me sacó. No, por ahí no. Y ya me mandó a la casa. La próxima vez seguí la línea amarilla. Llegué a un salón de clases y había pura gente incapacitada. Nos dieron una hoja a hacer unas sumas, 1 más 0, 2 más 0. Y todos ahí haciendo las matemáticas. Y yo me le quedé mirando al papel. Apareció el profesor y nomás movió la cabeza. Y ya me mandó a la casa. La tercera vez llegué y el sargento me dice en español, entrégamelo a mí. Y yo, este aprendió español. Era hispano. Me metió en una oficina y me dice, ¿sabes qué? Tú ya tienes mucho tiempo y dices que no hablas inglés. ¿Por qué? Pues tengo 2 trabajos y pues, ¿y no aprendes? No, pues no tengo tiempo. Esa no es excusa. Tú tienes miedo. No, no tengo miedo. Si quieres, vamos. Tú tienes miedo. Me dijo, Mi madre en 6 meses aprendió a hablar inglés. Y pues le dije, es que a tu madre no se la van a llevar a Vietnam. ¡Lárgate! Y me dejó ir y ya me dieron la clasificación inservible para el país. Inservible. Y pues aquí estoy. Así fue, metiéndome en pleitos. Aquí en el MU estoy en uno. Estamos peleando por 21 la hora. Como dije, me inspiró mucho César Chávez. Él era el compadre de mi sobrina, así que nos hicimos cercanos. Me gustó mucho su filosofía. La fuerza de la unión me parece muy importante. En una ciudad de Los Ángeles, Montebello, querían rociar malatión. Es malo para la salud. Yo supe que estaban manifestando y les dije que iba a hablar con César. Él también estaba en contra de los químicos. Entonces me dijo, júntame mínimo 10 personas y ahí estoy. Y de ahí agarré la ideología. Eso hice la panadería. Conté 1, conté 2, hasta que nos hicimos como 50, 60 y ya era bastante. Aunque no pudimos lograr lo que queríamos en la panadería y además me accidenté de tanta presión que me estaban dando, aún aprendí mucho y me dio mucha fuerza. Así que aquí en la universidad es lo mismo. De una persona a otra se extendió por toda la universidad, hasta los estudiantes. Y allí estamos. Los estudiantes han sido muy importantes. En realidad ellos son los que han estado llevando mucho el movimiento. Hasta hicieron una manifestación en frente de la oficina del presidente. Sí. Hace poco nos respondió la universidad y nos dijeron que iban a subir a 19, 15. Mucha gente ganaba menos de 18, así que es un aumento significante. No es lo que pedíamos, pero siento que es un principio. Algunos dicen que soy conformista, pero siento que se hizo algo, que las marchas y el movimiento no fueron en vano. Si siguen, yo los apoyo, pero lo veo como un principio. Hay veces que los movimientos resultan en pasos atrás. En la panificadora votamos para ir a huelga y los dueños casi cerraron la fábrica. Eso fue un paso adelante. Es un principio. Esto que pasó se dio por la marcha al presidente. Hay gente más arriba del presidente en la universidad. Es un movimiento que se tiene que hacer desde la cabeza. Les dije a mis compañeros que solo cuando yo vea que mi cheque es de 20 a 21 la hora, que ojalá será el año que viene, me voy. ¿Te vas? ¿Por qué? Pues le estoy robando el aire a los jóvenes ganando mucho overtime. Ese es mi propósito antes de irme. Que los que se queden bien asegurados con ese sueldo. Ah. Y ya, cuando me retire, me pondré a ver televisión. Porque ahora no me dejan. La mujer no me deja. Dice que eso de ver televisión es para los flojos. No se admiten. Aquí hay mucho que hacer. Solo miro televisión cuando estoy comiendo. Termino de comer y es a alimentar a los perros, a doblar ropa. Bueno, tal vez por eso también sigo trabajando.
So you want us to do this today? Together?
That's going to be an interesting dynamic.
How do we start this?
The work that we do is so different. I'm the executive director of Operation Progress, and before that, I worked at Verbum Day High School.
And I'm founder of Alma Backyard Farms.
I am the oldest of 5. Erika's the middle child, and we are who we are today. It has been informed by how we experience family and community, and how we experienced college, and then coming from a traditional Mexican family with immigrant parents.
So when our parents first came to the US, they had family in Santa Monica, right? They started in Santa Monica, and but as the family grew, Dad was commuting way out. He started looking for homes so that their commute would be lighter. And I think that's how the story goes, that Watts was affordable.
He also shared recently that he drove around after work up and down Hawthorne Boulevard and didn't find one for sale sign. And a supervisor said, "We found a home. It's in Watts. Do you want to see it?" Dad said, "No, just tell me where to sign." He signed the paperwork sight unseen. And that was in '89. That's how we ended up in South LA.
Do you remember Rambo?
Oh, yeah.
Rambo is the name of the, we called this man. What was his name?
Rodney.
Rodney.
Yeah. Because he was a vet and he wanted to, he asked to be called Rambo.
Yeah. And he was kind of homeless, kind of would live in someone's garage for a bit, but he loved Mom's cooking. And so he would pull up to the porch, post up until we fed him.
Yeah, oftentimes he didn't say much. He'd just sit on the porch, laugh, and he would sometimes ask for a meal. Other times he would just sit and wait until he was given food.
Non-threatening, like inoffensive, so warm and friendly. And as kids, I remember being 8 years old or something, like young, and Rambo would post up on the porch, and then we would say, "Rambo's here," and somebody would get a plate together for Rambo. And I look back at that, there's many things that kind of shape where one ends up and how one thinks or one's decisions are informed. And he would just sit on the porch enjoying it. He asked for a glass of water, whatever he needed.
Seconds.
Yeah, sometimes he comes back and requests a meal. In Spanish, there's a saying, el más jodido. It's kind of like the ones who has it worse off or struggling the most. That's the one that you need to take care of. You don't turn your back. You don't look away. Mom always cooked. I think we used to complain a lot about it as kids because it was like we never got to go to Sizzlers.
Yeah.
We never got to go to Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah.
And all of our friends
were like, "Oh, we went to IHOP this weekend."
IHOP.
What's on IHOP? Pancakes? Oh, we have to eat our mom's pancakes.
And looking back, like we were actually pretty blessed. And Mom would be like, "Oh, you want pancakes? I will make you pancakes." Or do you want pizza? We'll make you pizza.
Our memories aren't centered around eating out and experiencing a restaurant. I think in part because our parents prefer to eat in. That's how they were raised. And also there's just no sit down restaurants or nice restaurants in Watts.
And there's too many of us.
5 kids on a limited income. I mean, how do you do that? How do you manage that? How do you order when you don't understand the language? In college, we would say, "Okay, we got to come together," and we would come together around a meal. And sometimes Erika would be responsible for deciding on the meal, and her and Jesus would do it, or Ana, Beto, and I would do it. We'd come together once a month and we'd break bread together. And with Rambo, I think the other thing I will add is Rambo was community. So during a time when our city was at odds and the racial tensions were high in Watts, here we are unknowingly forging relationships that matter. If he looked out for us, we looked out for him. He used to call me Cinderella.
Yeah, that's right.
He'd have the liveliest attitude, very appreciative of mom's food.
But it was almost like it satisfied a deeper hunger. It was not just that warm meal, it was to connect. It was to be seen. He was a veteran who was struggling with addiction and with housing, with
Family.
and none of that really mattered to us. We were just like, we got food. We are very fair-skinned, white Mexican family that moved into Watts, a predominantly Black neighborhood at the time.
I mean, a white Mexican family.
Yeah. And people would say we were just like the whitest Mexican family in Watts. So people would be like so concerned. Are you guys lost? Like cops would pull mom over. Can we help you find your way? And we lived with that, you know, with racial tensions. And then there was the 92 riots. You know, we got to see fire from our house window.
From the trees.
Climbing on the trees to see what was going on. So living at a time when there was a lot of racial tension, and here we were, you know, with very fair skin in the neighborhood that was battling a lot of these challenges. So I think in part that helped to inform our childhood. I feel like we were very privileged because of our white skin. So what do we do with that privilege? How do we work to create an inclusive community? To whom much is given, much is expected. And I've always felt that even though we grew up with maybe not so much, we grew up with a lot more than a lot of people.
It informs.
I think it informs that we're not just on this earth to take care of ourselves.
Yeah, when I graduated from LMU, Pam Rector, who was my mentor and probably everyone else's mentor, says to me, you need to stay in the community. I don't give an F what you want. There's a great position at Verbum Day High School. I don't think you realize the potential that you have to make an impact. I was there for 17 years before coming to Operation Progress. One of my coworkers would say, we set the table. That's what we commit to do for others. You know, everyone has a similar place setting, but that doesn't mean everyone is ready to show up at the same time. At the time you say dinner is ready, everyone might not be ready to come to the table. You have to encourage them.
I also worked with Pam Rector at LMU. I was planning on being an elementary school teacher. I would always get my little cousins to play together, to play school, and I'd always be the teacher. That was the role I wanted to play.
And you did it so well.
And I always wanted an overhead projector for Christmas. I still do, just putting it out there. I went into pursuing teaching at LMU. I was very involved in the Dolores Mission community in Boyle Heights. And I was doing a lot of work with the after school program there. And Richard, who is over there at the entrance, who is now my husband, ran this program. And I always had this thing, well, when I graduate from LMU, I'm going to work in Latin America because they need teachers. I can teach. I wouldn't mind living in Latin America. And I remember he challenged me with, yeah, they need teachers out there, but we need people here too. Like, your own backyard needs you. And that conversation really shook me up and stirred up like my perception of the role that I could play in this world. And so I ended up doing some work at home, excuse me, at Homeboy Industries, particularly Homegirl Cafe. The team was looking for help, and Richard said to them, "You guys need somebody like Erika on your team." So I didn't teach in a classroom. The kitchen and the restaurant became my space. And it sort of helped to inform the work that we do here at Alma, supporting people in transition, mostly transitioning from incarceration back into society. So it's I think a lot of it comes from, you have to take responsibility for your own actions, for your own life. And getting to that point was really hard. The younger person this younger person who worked for us for a few years, who relapsed into drinking, and we had to let him know that you can't be around here anymore. He shows up today after a few years of us not knowing anything about him. Today, this morning. So this is George, who you probably remember, but he has with him this award that we gave him. And he had gone to this award ceremony, and Alma was given some community award, and Richard had said to George, you know, "I'm really proud of you. Take this. You deserve it. You are Alma Backyard Farms." And this was years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And today he shows up and he has this award, and he's like, "I wanted to return this because I'm struggling. I'm struggling with life. I'm homeless. I don't want to lose this. And I thank you guys for letting me hold on to this for this long, but I don't think I deserve it anymore." And he returns it to us and goes on to share how he's doing not well. And he said something like, "Well, if you give me a job, I'll stop drinking." And Richard says, "Stop drinking and I'll give you a job. The responsibility is on you. The job isn't going to stop you from drinking. You need to stop yourself from drinking so that you can be open to the opportunities that can be given to you. The responsibility has to be within yourself." And I think that's part of the work that we are engaged in, because as we work on the plants, work on us. It can get kind of spooky, because when you're working the land can kind of pull and say, "You got some shit to deal with." So we utilize like urban agriculture as a means for that personal growth. We're growing community because urban agriculture helps facilitate that. It's just a vehicle to that end. We had this small farm near USC. We partner with a transitional housing program called the Francisco Homes. They house men on parole from life sentences. They call themselves lifers and have done 15 plus years in prison. And they were only housing men. It was a corner lot. And we converted that space into an urban farm. This house was, before it became a re-entry house, it was a dope house. Then it was acquired by this program, and it housed people in recovery. And suddenly this beautiful garden, went up, and the neighborhood was so curious. Can I have some of that cilantro you're growing? Are you going to sell it? How do I get my hands on that? Excuse me. So can I have some cilantro? They're constantly, how do I get my hands on those vegetables? So now there's a conversation that started between someone who's just got out from doing 27 years and someone who's lived in the neighborhood for a long time. And these guys who had just gone out of prison were suddenly finding themselves in conversation with their neighbors. You know, here in Compton, you know, as we've grown, we're tackling the injustices of not only incarceration and reentry, but food injustice and environmental injustice, with limited green spaces and limited access to good foods. And from the moment you walk through those gates, your experience is nothing like a grocery store. I mean, in a beautiful space, it is much easier to talk about incarceration, about healing, about trauma, about injustices. And it is palatable, not just for the people who are struggling with those injustices and are facing them, but for those that aren't. Yeah. I was thinking about this. So over Thanksgiving, Operation Progress, and correct me if I'm wrong, has given families support with food and maybe also gift cards or something. But during, you know, support, like during the Thanksgiving season. And this past year, Cristina and her team thought maybe we could link up and be a part of it. And it could be to promote good food and to highlight some of the great stuff that Alma is growing. And so how does Operation Progress team up with Alma to provide really good groceries to families? They wanted people to drive up and get food. And I said, they needed to come all the way in. And there was some hesitation from like the team. And this is my thing, like, people have to walk into the farm. You have to walk into the space because
You have to feel it, you know. And you know, I think there's room for us to continue to collaborate because we are so close. It's a 12-minute drive from one organization to the other. There's a space here that can be utilized to bring awareness to the families that we serve. Yeah, I'll wear my Alma shirt on my outings with the scholars, and as parents are dropping them off, they're like, "Oh, I know Alma." I think they often think Erika is Alma, right?
yeah.
They're like, "I know Alma. She works at that farm." I'm like, the name of the farm is Alma. My sister is Erika. So it's that name recognition. But more importantly, it's the work that they are doing here that I want them to recognize.
And we're not a farm stand in the sense like the stands that are off the 5 freeway, where you just pull up in and it's this little cute stand and you just pull up and then zoom, you take off. Now, we're in the middle of a neighborhood and we want that experience to start when you get out of the car. we want for you to leave feeling better than when you arrived. And in order for that to happen, this is the experience that engages all senses. And there's this reciprocity between people, plants, and place that we often talk about, where one can't exist without the other. But there's this constant movement between all three. And it takes work to keep that alive. You know, Father Boyle says, he says this often, there is no us and them. It's just us. And so when you don't identify people by what they did or their past, this is just a community that's feeding people. You know, Alma in Spanish, excuse me, Alma in Spanish means soul. The name comes from a few things. Our first farm is located on Alma Avenue in East LA, but we often say that the work we do satisfies a deeper hunger, not just one of the stomach, but one of the soul. And it goes back to our conversation about Rambo. Was it really those enchiladas? Or was it the fact that we got to connect with someone and he felt seen?
And safe.
And safe. you know. Yes, the food was good, but and so was the plate, you know. The handoff was that the means for the connection that we still call to mind today? Or but it's that same thing, you know. How do we look out for each other?
I think so much of that work is, where does your obligation end and where does the other person's obligation begin? You know, it's in this mutual partnership. It's the work that we're doing to empower others to believe in themselves. You know, George came here this morning with an intention, the same way that the youth in our programs at Operation Progress or the students at Verbum Day come to those spaces with their intentions. You play a role together in shaping that. And there's, for me, an obligation to create a space and set the table to allow you to join. And if you choose not to, then I'm not obligated to change your mind. You talk about Rambo being seen. I remember my English teacher, Miss Emerson. She saw me. In 8th grade, she started correcting my English papers, and she would make comments like, Cristina, you shouldn't go to the local high school. There are other high schools where you will be challenged academically and where you will thrive. I see you there. I wasn't feeling seen at home. My experience as the oldest child was very experimental for my parents and therefore very challenging for me. And for the first time, there's this woman who is not my family who is saying, you're capable, you're deserving, you're intelligent. And when I got into Notre Dame Academy, which is where I went to high school, when the big envelope came, Dad handed it to me, and I'm like, I got accepted. He picks me up and he spins me around and he says, congratulations. That is the one time in my 40 years of life that I remember Dad showing any emotion, any happy, congratulatory emotion towards his daughter in a way that felt genuine and real. And so not only did I feel seen by my 8th grade teacher, for the first time, I felt seen by my dad. And I wanted to go to Notre Dame Academy more than ever before because now Dad was also happy. I mean, my education was for me, for my development, for my growth. And in that moment, it was for Mom and Dad. It was for my siblings, because everyone said to me, you're the oldest, set an example for them. And for me, setting the example academically was what I think I liked the most. Miss Emerson would say, academics helps break the cycle. Go to a good high school, you're going to go to a good college, you're going to help your family, you're going to help your parents, you're going to help yourself. I had experiences because of Miss Emerson. You know, it is really a labor of love to wake up every morning wanting to contribute to someone else's life and to want to inspire difference. Not be the difference because who am I to change your life? You know? I have seen 3 alum from Verbum Day High School in the last 2 months. They say, you saw me, you believed in me, you pushed me, and we thought you were just being a hard ass, you were breathing down our backs. But all you wanted for us was to have an opportunity, something that other people have access to in ways that we don't. And the hugs that I get from them validate the work that I did. Not while I was doing it. I didn't get the validation then. It's similar in that you plant seeds. Just like Erika is helping plant seeds here. You know, they fuel me. This work fuels me. Now I'm at Operation Progress, and the families are amazing. The kids are amazing. It's us. It's who we were. Operation Progress is an organization that provides academic guidance and resources, life skills, a safe network, a chance to break the cycle. We build relationships with families who often say they need guidance. And my parents didn't have guidance. they navigated on their own. We navigated individually and tried to figure out stuff. We did it. We did it through the help of people like Miss Emerson, trial and error and passing it down from one sibling to the next. I think we passed on what we could. And once I was able to capture the knowledge, it became easier to pass it down to Beto. Anna shared stories about Beto and Jesus sitting with her, talking about college, filling out the college application. I don't know that I was good at saying, stay away from this or stay away from that. It was more like, this is what you have to do. Don't forget these deadlines. Let's fill this out. I think I became like the translator, the appointment setter, the homework helper, or watch the kids because we've got to go run an errand. And you compartmentalize all the stuff and roles that you're expected to be good at and be good at all the time. And as the oldest, it felt like, oh, it still feels like a lot of pressure. A huge weight. I still get calls from Dad. He'll call and say, what time are you going to be at work tomorrow? I'm going to stop by so you can read this document. I'm like, okay, I'll be there at 7:15. See you there. Erika is better at setting up boundaries. And she's like, no, you are not going to show up. I'm busy at 7:15. The pressure that I put on myself, that I continue to place on myself is you can't settle for anything less than your best. And I hear it in Erika too. During the pandemic, we helped with food distribution, and Erika would say, no wasted movements. If you are headed in a direction and there's something that needs to go in that direction, do it. You are right. You are fucking right. No wasted movements. It's how we operated all our lives. And so when I heard her say that, I just remember stopping in my tracks. You just named how I've been operating since I was born. I've been given roles that 7-year-olds shouldn't have, and roles that 11-year-olds should not have. And I placed a role on myself that a 19-year-old should not have. And I embodied them because it was an expectation that I placed on myself, because my parents crossed that border for a better life. Gosh darn if I didn't make sure that our life was better.
I mean, when I look back at our childhood, what I see is that you just jump into the role that needs to be done.
And you don't complain about it.
You don't complain about it because it's like the work needs to get done, so you do it.
Now, as an adult, I learned from Erika's teachings, no wasted movements. Or when she's told my parents, if you need my help, I'm here for 30 minutes. She knows how to set boundaries. So she's younger than me age-wise, but I think maturity-wise, she's like well beyond any of us. And she's become a role model for me and a role model for my daughters. And she shows up in very intentional ways. When she shows up, she shows up.
I think a lot of it for me comes down to your family knows when you're being your best and when you're not. And Cristina has always been a good reminder for me, like, okay, are you being your best self in all of these decisions and in all of these movements? And that love that comes from Cristina as the executive director of the Cuellar residence is it's grounding. I appreciate it. And I'm after it. And it's this ongoing, like, let's go. And, so I appreciate that about Cristina. I appreciate the accountability. And yeah, I didn't even know I was such a good boundary setter.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So I guess I do have some hard boundaries. Like I'm very much an introvert, which is very interesting because people always go like, what?
I get the same thing. So am I.
There's no way, And I always tell people just because you're an introvert doesn't mean you are socially awkward. You can have conversations, and that's something else that's not an introvert.
Wow.
You can't be good for anyone else if you're not good for yourself. So you have to figure that out. You have to pay attention to yourself.
I think what's interesting about that is there are 5 siblings. Beto passed away 6 years ago. So there's 4 of us that are alive. And while we are different, there's similarities. We're all figuring out the better versions of ourselves. I often wonder, is this the makeup of all immigrant families? Is this what happens when you're first generation American family and you have to figure it out? Or is this us? Is this the Cuellars? We influence each other and we want to positively contribute in ways where it is visible. And we are our parents' pride and joy. So when you think about how brave that move was to cross the border to a completely foreign land and not understand where you're going to end up.
I think our parents are so incredibly brave and hardworking, and their faith keeps them just so grounded. And that's without a doubt, because they are that. I mean, that which we get to be, who we are today. And it's because they have those, it's like their core
values.
Yeah, it's their attributes. They have that courage. They have that bravery, and they don't give up. That we also have. I mean, their blood runs deep through us. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I have any more to give. I mean, this was interesting. Cristina and I have never done anything like this.
Not together, only individually.
Right. So how do we do?
My mother used to always tell me, lead with your heart. See, I'm the 5th of 7 children, and we would always joke that I was a little off center, a little off balance. But the thing that I love is that at some point I became the even-keeled one, right? And so when things got outrageous in one direction or the other, they would go to Keith. I'm Bryant, but I'm also Keith, right? At home with my siblings, with my family, they refer to me as Keith. And I mean, I'll tell you that when I get off the plane in Lafayette, Louisiana, when I'm going to visit home, there is something in my head. There's something in my heart. There's something in me that shifts. I loved my parents. I liked my parents, and I knew that they liked me. I'm first generation. When I was doing college work at the dining table where my father would sit drinking his coffee, he would say, "What are you reading there?" And when I was struggling with something, he would say, yeah, you know what, this is what I'm thinking. And then he would tell me a story, and that story would always allow me a different point of entry into a new, highly academic, intellectual perspective. And I would go, oh, thank you. Thank you. That works. That works. Then I could get back in the reading. Then I could write what I needed to write. And this is my father with a fourth grade education. He would listen deeply to what I was saying, and then he would give me something that I could use to reframe the nature of the academic. My mother used to say, you know, Keith, you're a lot of things. My mother spoke in parables sometimes where she spoke in code. Then other times she was so direct. And my mother knew I was gay long before I did, right? You know, it's that happens sometimes. It's that biblical kind of thing where mothers have a sense of who their child is long before maybe they were in the womb. And part of my mother was this good Catholic girl wanting all of her children to be close and have a great relationship with God. And she was negotiating the balance between what her Catholic teaching taught her and what a mother's love has to do in the world. But she particularly wanted me not to turn my back to God, especially when we were in church and we heard painful rhetoric, you know, about sexuality, about homosexuality. And my mother would say, you are a child of God, and God don't make mistakes, and that you are loved by me and by God. See, part of me wants to tear up right now. You know, I'm always Keith, Uncle Keith, Kiki. You know, we play multiple roles in our lives, right? But one that anchors me is being fifth of 7 children, right? Being my parents' son. I keep this picture behind me, a picture of my parents, as a reminder of the man my mother wanted me to be. There are times when, in the craziness of what we do as administrators and the swiftness in which we need to respond to certain kinds of situations, that it's so easy via email or through a quick response to lead with something other than the heart. And I look at my mother and I go, got it, mommy. Got it. Right? And then I don't write that email. In some cases, I get on the phone. In some cases, I'll walk down the hallway. And by seeing and engaging in the human component, we can tease through and negotiate our humanness as we address whatever the issue is. And it's the humanness that is at the core of who we are. We can deal with the administrativia, right? The many, everyday, practical, messy things that we do as in administration. It's so easy for us to lose a sense of the interconnectedness of the spirit of the heart of the soul of our humanity. And I have to model it. I just think that that's just such a supreme act of grace, right? You know, an act of every day, the Spirit of God at play, at work, in the practical things that we do for each other. The communication department is dedicated towards looking at all the variables that impact face-to-face human interaction, right? Certainly what happens in interpersonal communication, intercultural communication, interracial communication, which are all ways in which human beings influence each other. There's this trail of Black students who come by because they see Black people in my office. This sweet young man showed up one day. I'm working at my desk and I saw him in the hallway and I just waved, just acknowledged, a little nod. And he summoned up something in him to come into the office. And he said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. May I borrow a pen? And I said, sure, right there on my desk. And he took the pen, but he was like looking at me like this. And I said, how are you doing? I'm Dean Alexander. I'm Dr. Alexander. What's your name? And he told me his name. And we had this little moment, and he was like writing or pretending to write. I'm not sure. And then he said, okay, thank you. And he left. Now, he came back later in the day and introduced himself to my assistant, Pam, who is also a Black woman, and said, I have work study and I'm looking for a job and I think I'd like to work here. And he's not one of my students in the sense of being a major. He showed up the next day wearing a suit, that sort of first suit kind of thing for a formal interview with Pam. And then she set up an appointment where he came in and did an interview with me. And, we've hired him, right? He comes in every day, sticks his head in my office, and he wants to chat just a little bit. And I give him that space because ultimately it's about him finding himself and being in the company of support. This is something that I want for all the students. So we get an email, a message from his mother that says, thank you so much. What you don't know is that he just lost his father. And he's been looking for a male, a Black male figure that can support him in his being. And he just wanted to be in the company of you and your assistant in an office where he could be himself. And I was like, there you go. Because this is a part of that whole notion of being alive, of being fully present, being accessible, because you're never quite sure when someone is going to need that spirit. I think that we encounter multiple crossroads in our lives, and what comes out determines, the kind of grit that we have to continue in moving forward, right? There's a lot of challenges about identity, about the performance of manliness and masculinity, and about what's acceptable in a shifting cultural, social, political context, right? And the issue, you know, if you're leading with your heart, then you're leading with integrity. Then every one of those challenges, because they're going to be there every other day, they're going to show up, right? And each one of us is as monumental as the other, right? You know, but if you're leading with integrity and heart, then you have a path. I'm going to say something to you that I actually haven't said to anyone on campus. So, less than a year ago, I was at an event and I passed out and I was rushed to the hospital. I had a regular heartbeat that kept me in the hospital for several days. And I ended up getting a pacemaker. And so, I'm playing with this because of the crossroads moment there, right? When I had to figure out what is it that I needed to change in my life, you know? And what are the things that I need to uphold in the sense of my values? I decided to uphold and make bigger, make dynamize those things that give me greater joy, you know? And those things that are the things that allow me to continue to be alive, to be happy, to do the work with passion. So here I am, you know, having a cardiac moment, literally, right? And I'm thinking about my mother, and mother saying to me, lead with your heart in a way that allows you to be fully present for yourself first. And so, you know, that kind of crossroads moment, a moment of reckoning where you have to kind of remind yourself of how you want to live your life. I'll admit it because of the man that I am. And I often tell people that I cry. I cry often as a way of purging myself, you know? And, you know, sometimes it gets overwhelming. You know, those are the moments when I separate myself, that I have to pause. I have to take a walk, go to the bluff and go have moments in silence. I go to the chapel and I sit, and whether or not I'm praying or just enjoying the solitude, those are moments to kind of regroup. But it's so funny because I happen to have one right here, right? A carpenter's level, you know, with the bubbles that help you adjust something. See, I use it as a visual aid, right? Because quite often when people talk about balance, they're talking about a balance between the public and the private, between work and the personal. And I've never actually believed that, right? Remember, I describe myself as being a little off center, right? And so I don't know what that is, you know, this kind of balance, right? But what I love about the carpenter's level is that in this corner, there is another one of those little water bubbles, these water bubbles, right? So in fact, if I want to measure something on this plane and I want it to be even, there's a whole other bubble right here that I can use. There's multiple of these things. I mean, I think that my life is more balanced when it's askew than when it's centered. Because I'm not looking at things in the middle that tells me it's supposed to be like this. My life has always been like this, right? And if I can find balance where it matters, then I'm happy. Your balance might be here, right here, and good for you. My balance is somewhere here. And I can live with that angle. I can live with being off center. It doesn't scare me. In fact, I thrive, right? Because I create my balance. I create a balance of my work life, in my personal life, in my spiritual and academic life, all of those things. And I have a lot going on, and it doesn't fit right here. And it's not equal, and it's not always pretty, and it's not always straight, but you know where your balance is, right? It's somewhere in your head. So when a faculty member is talking to me, or a student is talking to me, and they're talking about balance, my question is always, what does balance feel like for you? And I go to the shelf and I bring this out, and I'm like, is this what you're striving for? That you can have all of it. You can have all of it. But it doesn't have to look like this. You can figure out what your balance is. And keep it as a kind of reminder, right? That it's not the same as what Johnny or Bobby or Susie might have. You need to find your joy, in the bubble, in your balance might not be vertical or horizontal. Mine is slightly askew. There's a moment in my memory when I'm standing outside of the funeral home at my brother's funeral, and I look across the street and I see a childhood friend of mine named Donald who didn't get out, right? But got into every possible bad thing, in a sense of drugs and alcohol and whatever his life was at the time. And that moment of looking and standing there, looking at my childhood playground where my house used to be, and seeing Donald there, it becomes this weird juxtaposition of the me and the not me, or the me that could have been. And I know that the world has turned many, many times, and I guess, a lot has changed, but those things that matter. My mother, who was a very good Catholic girl and so proud of anything and everything that I had accomplished, used to say, Keith is a relatively good Catholic boy. She would look at me, right, and kind of wink, and she would smile, right, and I would wink, and I would smile, because it wasn't like a slap in the face. So when I applied to this Catholic university in the Jesuit and Marymount tradition, I said to myself, I'm a relatively good Catholic boy. They'd be lucky to have me. This is a place where I can practice my faith and do the kind of work that gives me joy and illustrative life, and know that the two are interconnected. And so I'm sitting here in my office, which is wonderfully located right across from the chapel, and a beautiful chapel right there. And I spend a lot of time in that space reflecting. This is the place I call home.
In need of healing and compassion, we ask for the grace
To grow community.
To empower others to believe in themselves.
to sit with them and listen and know that they're not alone.
To make sure that those who stay behind are well off with what they make.
To lead with the heart.
To heal.
To connect.
To educate.
To liberate.
So that all may be one. Dr. Bryant Keith Alexander.
Cristina Cuellar.
Erika Cuellar.
Luis de la O.
Sister Joanna Carroll.
Good afternoon. I'm Sister Marianne Hipper, Associate Director of the CSJ Center. I want to say thank you to those who made that fabulous performance possible. I know that you, family, friends, and colleagues all have been moved and inspired by the lives and contributions of our honorees today through the magnificent stories written by our writers and portrayed by the actors. Now to continue our celebration, on behalf of the CSJ Center, it gives me great pleasure to present each honoree with an original tile designed by one of our sister artists, Ellen O'Leary. We believe that the sentiments expressed in Sister Ellen's description of the piece convey why we hope this gift will be a lovely reminder of each recipient of this special day. So, in Ellen's words, the tapestry symbolizes your life. The weaving of the colors reminds you of the people woven in your life that you have touched and those who have influenced you. The gold spaces are those moments when your heart has expressed great compassion and service. You have blessed our planet, and yet the tapestry is not finished. May your continual presence express the beauty of your person. Dean Bryant Alexander, Joanna Carroll, Cristina Cuellar, Erika Cuellar, Luis de la O. So now the presentation to each of our honorees, who will also have a chance to say a few words. Dean Bryant Alexander.
Dean Alexander, you're on mute.
I'm so touched and moved by this recognition. I've had the pleasure for a number of years to be actively involved in the presentation of this award to so many others. And I found myself each and every one of those times getting so immersed in their lives, and each of them have become heroes to me, like those who have been presented today. And I just never imagined that I would be a part of this in this particular way. And so I appreciate you all. And to my brother, my young brother, Deshaun Terry, I've always loved you. Right now, I'm just obsessed with you in terms of your talent and your generosity. So thank you so much to everyone involved.
Joanna Carroll.
It was such an honor to be with all of you awardees. I just absolutely love hearing your stories. And I remember that this has always been one of my favorite events to attend on campus. And I would sit in the audience or on Zoom and just cry and laugh with the stories. So to be a part of it this way, inside of the process, and see how beautifully this all comes together. To have Dory interview me and write up my story, have Christoph Dada take the part of sharing my story. I've always wanted to be more like Kath. So to have her be the one to actually share my story was such a gift. And to see how Judith and Marianne and Stephanie pulled this all together. This is such a beautiful tribute. And Ellen O'Leary is such a dear, dear person and sister and friend for me. So this is something that I treasure, and I treasured this time with all of you. Shout out to our campus ministry director, Father Mark Reeves, and the entire campus ministry team, and all the LMU community. Thank you so much. And my brothers and sisters and their spouses, and all our sisters, and my housemates, the sisters who are here with me today. Maybe you can see them if they peek in or to celebrate with us today. So it's been such a gift. Life is a gift. Thank you.
Cristina Cuellar.
Hello, everyone. It is such an honor to be a recipient of an award from an institution that I have learned so much from. I was a major within the College of Communications, Dr. Alexander, so a double major in Spanish and Communication Studies. We are all heroes in one way or another, and it goes without saying that it's our bravery and our courage and the work that we do that helps to form who we are as individuals that leave a mark for others to follow. Y señor de la O, usted, al igual que mis padres, son en realidad unos héroes que dejan todo atrás por venir a un país e intentar una nueva vida, dejarlo todo atrás y empezar a desarrollar nuevas costumbres, nuevas tradiciones, nuevos valores. Mis padres hicieron lo mismo y si no fueran por ellos, no estuviéramos ahorita aquí beneficiando de todo lo que nos ofrece este país, ¿verdad? Así es que gracias a usted y a toda su familia que ha decidido venir a los Estados Unidos para lograr un cambio. Mis padres hicieron lo mismo. Entonces se le agradece a usted y a todas aquellas personas que creen en nosotros y que creen en un porvenir mejor. Thanks for sharing your stories, everyone. And thanks for recognizing the humble work that we do in the communities that we serve. We do it because it's our calling. It's our mission. Thank you.
Erika Cuellar.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I have my little plaque here. I just want to say that it's I can be where I am today thanks to the support and guidance of those who have come before me, before us. So a big shout out to our mentors, our grandparents, our parents, our elders, all of those who have whose shoulders we really stand on. We would not be where we are today if not for them and their struggles and their example. And so I just want to honor them in this space. As we highlight heroes, they have fought the fight for us to be able to continue on in our work today. So thank you, gracias, and happy to be with all of you today.
Luis de la O.
Bueno, gracias a Olivia principalmente, que ella fue la que me trajo aquí, que todavía no sé por qué estoy aquí. Y gracias a toda mi familia que vino, mis compañeros de trabajo. Gracias por este premio, que todavía quiero que me lo describan. Que no sé qué significa. Que alguien me explique. Que me explique Raymond.
¿Quieres enseñar a la familia?
Muchas gracias por todo.
We have mailed each of our recipients a gift certificate so that they may enjoy a meal with their loved ones. Please enjoy yourselves and know that we are celebrating with you. On behalf of Sister Judith, Stephanie, and me, good afternoon, and thank you for celebrating with us today. We will now bring on the company to join us.
Well, wonderful. I think we have most of our people together. We'll give people a minute to get on, but congratulations to our awardees. I hope everybody who's out there is still as an attendee is clapping their hearts out for you because you well deserve that. And I also want to just again thank the wonderful writers and actors and our production team who have done so much to make this come alive for us in such a special way. So what I'd like to do is now we have our audience. I believe Stephanie told me that we had about 100 people out there, and then that doesn't count all those people that are around the table with Luis and Raimondo. So 100 and some odd. But we want to say thank you to all of the people who came out to celebrate these people and their wonderful lives and their wonderful service and their inspiration, and more to the point, their challenge to us in their lives and their stories that they shared. So what we'd like to do now is just have a little bit of a party. We used to go out on the patio when this was live, and we'd have, you know, refreshments, and everyone would get to know everyone. And but we're going to do it this way now. So we're just open it up to share. We have some people. I think we should go around and just do some introductions. And let me do that. I'll call you. You know Cristina, and you know Erika, you know Luis de la O, you know. So Bonnie, would you introduce yourself? Unmute. Want to unmute? Okay.
Yeah. I'm Bonnie Banfield. I had the great joy and honor, and really, I'm going to tell you, he was so generous with his time. Dr. Alexander just gave me, like, we spent about 6 hours, you know, we spent about 2 hours twice. And there were some things in that piece that were that came up in the last interview. And I just am so grateful because, you know, I called up Dory and I said, okay, so I'm in love with the dean. And Dory told Sister Judith, and Sister Judith said, well, of course she is, you know. So this was I don't even want to call it a labor of love. It was just an experience of love. And I'm just so lucky to be a part of this ongoing Hidden Heroes thing. I always meet somebody. I always find out about things that really give me faith in, you know, going on, because there's so much that's so demoralizing in the world right now. And this always gives me hope. So thank you, sister. Thank you, doctor. And thank you, everyone, for this opportunity.
Thank you, Bonnie. And Bonnie's in California right now, but she lives in Iowa. So she had a lot of long distance Zoom meetings. Dory, I'm just going around in the way you are on my screen. So Dory, if you'd like to introduce yourself, anything you want to share?
Yeah, interviewed Sister Joanna, and I had quite a few snacks offered to me during that interview, and I believe that showed up in the piece. And that to me is a symbol of her generosity and the recognition that she thinks of others all the time, even in some very hard times. And we just value anything we can do to give something back. It was very hard to stop the list of thanks that Joanna started to provide. We were going to have a crawl running across the bottom of the screen, thanking everybody. But it's a real joy to work on these projects because, you know, as a playwright, it is really hard to write about people who are good. Most literature is about people who've done something pretty terrible. And so I just value this work, and it's hard work actually. And so anyway, I just thank everybody I'm looking at right here has done has contributed so much to this whole project. The storytellers, the writers, the actors. It's a really satisfying kind of work to do. So thank you.
And Dory is going to be kind of co-hosting this time with us. So if some of you have comments or questions or whatever on the chat, she'll be watching that, as will Jordan, our production manager. So feel free to put those through. So Zila.
Hello. I'm just filled with gratitude right now. I want to thank everyone here for sharing their stories and including me in the Hidden Heroes program. And I've just learned so much from listening today. And from being able to step into Cristina's shoes for the moment that I was able to, a whole new world opened up to me in Los Angeles. And it sort of broke my heart open again. And I want to go and visit the farms too. The farms are incredible. I'm just very honored and humbled by the work that everyone here is doing. And I want to thank Dory and Judy. Judith, thank you for bringing me in again. It's just very grounding and helpful. And I really needed this today. So thank you all very much.
Okay. And Luis Selgas.
Well, I just want to say that the exact same thing everyone has said. This is always such a special experience, and I'm so grateful to have the opportunity. Y demasiadas gracias a Luis de la O por compartir su historia conmigo y darme la oportunidad de compartirla yo con el resto de la gente. Gracias por ser tan gracioso y tan gracioso en el sentido de gracia, de reírme, pero también de gracia, de la gracia que tiene. O sea, de ser tan humilde y tan trabajador y dar de sí a todo el mundo. So thank you everyone. Gracias a Marco por actuar en el proyecto y bring Luis Serrao to life in your way. And I do have to say a little shout out to Sister Joanna. Hi, it's so nice to see you. And yeah, thank you everybody. You're all wonderful. Thank you everybody.
Thank you, Luis. Catherine.
Oh, I just really want to echo what everyone else has said. Judith and Dory for making this project come alive. Sister Joanna, oh my God, I felt so honored when they asked me to be you, and then terrified. Like, oh my God, how am I going to do justice to this amazing woman's story? And to be honest, it took us a couple of tries because I really just with my whole heart admire you and honor you so much for all that you do. And then listening to these stories today, oh my God, Dean Bryant, I was in tears. What a beautiful story. And the Cuellar sisters, oh my God, I want to talk to you guys about Francisco Holmes, who are awesome, and what you're doing, and just so, and Luis, I don't know if you remember me from Foley. I'm one of your fans. I mean, every story just had so much brightness and love to it, and it really is, it was an honor to represent you, Sister Joanna, and just finding out so many beautiful facets of people and honoring you guys. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Really, thank you.
And Marco. You're muted, Marco.
How's that? For me, it was an enormous pleasure to have participated in this event and to have been the actor that was given the opportunity to enter into Luis de la O's shoes. Quisiera decir unas palabras en español para Luis. Luis, me fue un honor muy grande entrar en sus zapatos para poder desempeñar la historia de su trabajo, de su vida y compartir esos hechos con los demás. Felicidades y gracias por esa oportunidad. And I would like to thank Dory and Judith for bringing me on to participate in this fabulous event. And it's a reminder for me that, you know, life is not always about ourselves. It's about the other person. It's about sacrifice. And indeed, the sharing Luis de la O's story was a reflection of my family too. The immigrants' experience that comes here not to take, but to give, to offer. And it was a great reminder of that. And thank you very much to everyone, especially Luis de la O. Thank you.
I've had something come up on my screen that is blocking it, so sorry about that. Dory, I'm going to have to probably until I can get rid of this, let you handle questions. What I would like to say is that there are 2 more boxes down below, and that has Stephanie Mejia and Jordan Frey. And they may or may not want to come on and say anything because they are running the whole thing technically, which is a major achievement. So I would like us to at least give them an applause for what they have done. And they may be able to come on later. My screen's clear again. I don't know what's happening with my computer today. There are gremlins in the computer. Anyway, what I think we'd like to do is to have a chance for people to talk to each other. We also, I think that particularly the storytellers to talk to us about what that experience was. I have shared before that Kath Christoph, as a matter of fact, Catherine Dada, actually told my story as a cancer survivor. So I know what it's like to sit back and hear the words you have said to somebody else be transferred into a work of art. And that's what it is. It becomes a work of art, as your lives are. You know, maybe you want to share some of that for the people that are listening or with the actors or writers. It's a kind of open time for you to share it a little bit, and we'll be watching also to see if there are comments or questions coming in from the chat room. So let's just kind of open it up.
May I? And I'm going to apologize because those of you that know me know that I'm doing a million things at the same time. All right. And so I'm going to need to excuse myself to run across campus to support the Marital and Family Art Therapy program that's celebrating their 40th anniversary.
Yes.
But I'm completely overwhelmed. And I think, as Deshawn said, as me, right? You know, I'm a kind of a crybaby, and I tear up quite often, right? And I've learned to accept that, right? I just have to say that my experience in the interview process with Bonnie was so rewarding and so enjoyable. It was a true conversation, you know, and it was an opportunity to sort of share aspects of myself that are not always so present and evident. And that's by virtue of her ease, of her comfort, of her personality, of her playfulness, of her prodding and poking and teasing and pulling, but only in the most generous and loving kind of ways. And so I felt particularly comforted and secure within that conversation. Bonnie, who has a noted career as an actor, someone that I recognized immediately when I saw her on campus a number of years ago, someone who I've had deep care and respect for, and then to have this moment of coming around to be in a conversation with Bonnie in this way, right? It's also just extremely overwhelming for me. Right. And then to see my young brother, Deshawn, in that mode. There are moments, Judith, when you know how much I respect Deshawn, right? But there were moments when I was torn and I couldn't look at him, right? Because he was so wonderfully on point and so wonderfully engaged. You know, he looked like my little brother, sort of talking back at me in so many different ways. And so I just appreciate Deshawn. I absolutely adore Bonnie, and this program has always meant so much to me. And so thank you, thank you, thank you. Congratulations to the other recipients. Luis, you know, I know you, brother, right? And Luis, you know, is one of the faithful, right? And I use that in so many variations of how that term is used. And he's a consistent presence that I have valued and respected over the years that I've been here, right? And so I thank you all. and allow me to excuse myself as I make that mad dash across campus.
Celebrate
to work-
Deborah.
to do the work that we all do. So I appreciate
Marianne has just rushed ahead of you to do the same thing.
Right, right. And Sister Joanne, you know you're right here always, always, right? Love you. Thank you.
And Luis Delor, at some moment, we need to introduce Raimundo, who is, I see, moving behind you. Maybe he'll come on screen for us and just say hello. Ray, are you around? Ah, there he is. We just thank you to Raimundo for doing all the technical support and in some cases translations for us. So thank you, Ray, and for coordinating the party in the library. So, all right, let's continue the conversation between people.
This might be a good time for me to say something that I put in the chat. I really appreciate the parts that were in Spanish and that had the subtitles. I am more than happy to read subtitles and have the original language in Spanish. And it makes me very happy to feel that people who speak Spanish are included in that way, you know, so that they don't always have to translate, so that this time we get to be the ones who read and they get to have it in their original language. So I really appreciated that. And I know that that takes some doing. So I just wanted to do like a shout out to that.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions or thoughts? Dory, anything coming up that we want to deal with?
Oh, we've had lots of applause coming up on the chat, which is very nice. Always appreciated. I was going to ask Luis de la O through Ray, how is it in the room there? What was it like to be seeing that piece?
You're asking me or asking Luis?
I'm asking Luis, kind of, yeah.
But maybe you could translate for some of us, Ray. You're on mute.
Con ustedes y con mi familia para
It keeps going off on him.
There's feedback because they're two computers.
Yeah. We'll let you play with it and we'll come back to you.
But what's so nice is that there's a live party going on there in the library. And one of the things I miss the most about this, even though it's really nice that we can all be together on screen, the feeling of being in the same room is just wonderful. And I really hope that we'll be able to do this live at some point. So anyway, it looks like the chat has been fixed. So please put questions into the chat. And I just would love to see us all be able to do this in a real theater someday.
Yeah. I want to move a little bit to some of the challenge that the actors had. Most actors do not do a single take. So these actors, because we aren't changing spaces, so it's almost impossible to do cuts, etc., to do editing. We have to do these on a single take. Now, when that came to Cristina and Erika's piece, that meant that Zila and Erika, the actor Erika, were doing a half an hour take with no possibilities of a cut. And if we screwed it up, we had to go back and start again. So there was an incredible pressure, and both of them. And Deshaun said when he finished, and I'm sorry, the dean is missing this. He says, that is the longest take I have ever done in my life. So those are some interesting challenges. Plus the fact that Zila and Erika were in two different places. They were not in the same room. So the technical work that happened with our videographer to put a backdrop of the Alma Backyard Farms was also just a surprise to us that that could be done. So we learned a lot technically. So
And it worked out really, really well to see the two of them looking like they were in the same space and sharing, and the way they would look at each other and sort of giggle or sort of have a warm moment together. It was just, it was incredible. They did, besides the technical part, they each did a wonderful job of acting. Yeah.
It was phenomenal. And what I will say is that Erika was able to capture a lot of my sister's mannerisms, a lot of the ums and the coughing. That was not accidental. That is Erika being impersonated in a very real way. And Zyla, you did the same thing. I am also an introvert. I do a lot of listening. I'm not the talker. And so when you were acknowledging and nodding and saying that both of you captured us very well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I realized that it was so much extra work for all of you and took so much time, and yet it seems so real, and it was just perfect. I don't know how you could do it. I really thought the two of them were together in the same room. And Dory, I just have to say, we've always wanted to get together. And Dory says, well, I'll just come over to your place, I'll just come to your house. It was so great to have Dory here to interview me, and we could just kind of be, and I tell you, she just warmed my heart, and I just felt like crying and just sharing everything with her. She's just so open, and she's the best listener. So I was so grateful that Dory could interview me. And then when I heard that Kath was going to be acting my part, I thought, oh my gosh, I couldn't have asked for anybody that I would more have desired. I've watched you and Dory all these years and just admired your work. And I would like to be more like both of you. So thank you for your witness and your example. And of course, Sister Judith now was my 7th grade teacher. So I must give credit back to my 7th grade teacher for just.
It was an interesting year.
Yeah. And great to be with all of you.
Oh my gosh, on the tail end of that, Sister Joanna, I have to say, I was so honored when Judith and Dory asked me, and then terrified. And I have to say terrified. And Judith and Dory know this because it took us so many takes for me to get it right. And even when I got it right, are you sure? Are you sure? I don't think so. I don't think I got it right. Let's do it again. And yeah, I think it was possibly one of the hardest ones I've done because I wanted it to be right so much. That kind of got in the way. That got in the way of making it good because I was so nervous about doing it right. And doing justice to your just beautiful story.
More than justice.
The way that you honor everyone. Like, yeah, I really got what Dory said about like having a crawl on the bottom. Like you just honor everyone, and it isn't lip service. It really comes from your heart. And so to be able to do justice to that all the way through, I don't even know if I still did it, but it's out there in the world as a performance. So there we go.
It's more than justice. And I want to say thank you to Stephanie, who's just kind of the glue behind.
Oh my God, yes.
Dude, I don't know how y'all do it, but it all comes together. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, is anyone reading the chats?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So Sister Snacks.
Sister Snacks.
Sister Snacks. And Marlena Rich says hi to Sister Judith, also my 7th grade teacher. Oh my gosh.
Where at? Well, it has to be a Compton. Oh, someone from that same. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, wow. My best friend in elementary school.
Okay. Oh, that dates me. All right. So,
Taught me when she was 20 years old.
Yeah. Do we want to kind of allow you guys to get to dinner party with family, friends, whatever? Or are there some things that we still want to say? Oh, thank you, Elaine. Oh, good. We're getting
already
all of the Wonderful. Okay.
Denver
Well,
and Italia. Whose pets are Denver and Italia?
Right here. Let's see. Come here, Denver.
The pets are talking now.
Many pets were present during the recordings as well, walking in and out.
And it's really nice. We got a thanks from Marty Roars in Minnesota, who was a hidden hero one of our first years, sending regards to Sister Joe.
Oh,
And I was lucky enough to see him in Minnesota when I was there doing a play about 4 other sisters of St. Joseph. So there's it's really nice to see his name there. Thanks, Marty.
thanks, Marty. Welcome. Thank you for being here. So I think we'll begin to wrap it up because I know there are people have things to do and hopefully fun things to do. But I want to say again, thank you to our awardees, first of all, the generosity, I know personally, the generosity that it takes to share your stories in this way. But we appreciate the fact that you are giving us back again, the inspiration and the challenge to go do likewise, or to do what we can in our own backyards. And so thank you so much. And we had a really fabulous team all the way around this year, starting from our awardees, our writers, our actors, our producers, our videographer who was not able to be with us today, who has did an amazing job, and our original musician. So it takes a village. It takes a rather big village to do something like this. But the point is, that's the point. It is a village. And it is a village that includes many people who are inspiring us to have hope, to move forward with love and compassion and endurance, in a time that is very hard to do all of those things. So thank you to all of you, and keep the faith and keep doing the good work.